Hello and welcome to Model Train Fun. Today we are going to talk about the M83 decoder. So where we in previous beginners episodes have looked at the turnout and have looked at putting in a turnout mechanism and a decoder inside the turnout, this time we're going to look at an alternative, which is basically the M83 decoder, which actually can power multiple turnout mechanisms. So the M83 decoder actually has 4 outputs. So instead of having 4 turnouts each with a decoder in it, we can actually have one M83 instead, and then it can be hooked up to several turnout mechanisms. So the M83 I'm going to illustrate here is the 60832 version, which is the newest version, which is the black version you see here. You can also find the M83 in 60831, where it's white instead. So the big difference between the black edition and the white edition is basically the black edition can do MFX while the white cannot. So both of them are capable of doing Märklin addressing of 320 addresses and doing DCC addressing of 2040 addresses. So throughout the video I'll be using the newest one, so the black edition. If you have the 60831, which is the white edition, then basically install everything the same, with the exception of when you need to connect it to the central station tree, you'll have to give it an address using the dip switch because it doesn't support the MFX. In the video, I will connect 2 types of turnout mechanisms as well. So I have the 74490 turnout mechanism, which is the oldest. That one you see here is the one with the blue and yellow wires. And then I also have the 74492 turnout mechanism. This is the one here with the thicker wires here, where you see black, red and yellow. If you happen to have the 74491 turnout mechanism, then please install it as the 74490 turnout mechanism. It will have the same blue and yellow wires and can be connected in exactly the same way. The M83, when you take it out of the box, by default it supports turnout mechanisms. It can actually be reprogrammed to do other interesting things like light or even fire that emulate light and so on. However, we will look at that in a different episode. So in this episode, we'll only look at how to connect it to the turnout and the turnout mechanisms. We will see how to program and use the M83 using both the central station 3 and the mobile station 2. Since my mobile station 2 that has the red knob, which is the Märklin version, unfortunately does not work, I will in the video be using the mobile station 2 that has the green knob, which is essentially a tricks one. But never mind with that, and don't let you confused by that, because the green and the red knob mobile station 2s work exactly the same. So you can do anything you see in the video with the standard Märklin mobile station 2. Enjoy the video. Now let's look at how to install the M83. Remember, when you do this, it must be with power off, and don't forget to read the instructions as well. Now the M83 can actually do multiple things. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use it for the turnout mechanisms. When you take it straight out of the box, it's by default configured for turnout mechanisms. Alternatively, it could actually be configured for light or something else as well. If it's configured for turnout mechanisms, by default it occupies 4 addresses. If it's configured for light, it could actually be occupied for more addresses, actually 8 addresses. In the same fashion, when we later on look at how we connect to the central station tree, it will always automatically recognize it for turnouts, because that's the most common use for the M83. As I mentioned in the introduction, I will show how to install the 60832, but in essence the 60831, so the older version, you can install it in exactly the same way. The only difference is that it does not support MFX, so when you need to install it on the central station tree, you must set the address. So in order to install it, let's first connect it to the power. In order to do that, I got some wires. I got the standard Märklin red wire 7105 and the standard brown wire 7102. Then I got some of the little thingies so you can connect it to the track here. So that's the 74995. So the first thing we need to do is to connect this up. I'm gonna start with the brown wire here. You just need to take a length of wire. I'm not gonna make it too long. We need to remove the insulation in both ends. So the thing is with these ones here, you're not supposed to tin the ends. Just twist it and then it will go into the M83. I'm twisting both ends. I got these ones here out of a bag as well. You basically just, let me try and see if I can zoom in a little more here. Place them, I see it's not twisted entirely. Place it here inside the metal, the wire here, and then you basically just squeeze it. Usually you see it consists of two parts here. Something out here and something in here. I make sure that the part in here has the wire connected to it, and this one over here holds the insulation. So I basically put it down like this. You see the insulation just stops at the first one there, and then the wire a little difficult on camera. So I first squeeze it in here so it holds the wire for me. Okay, like this. And now it's holding the wire, and then I squeeze it in here so it gets connection with the wire, and it needs to be squeezed very firmly. So have to make sure it can't move backwards and forwards. Make sure there's good conductivity. When you got the red and the brown wire prepared with a little thingy at the end, remember the other end, just twist it. We need to attach it to the M83. So the M83 basically first has a set of connectors, 4 connectors here for the turnouts, and then it has the last connector here for the power, and you see it's clearly marked red and brown. So the brown is on the outside and the red is on the inside. So it's just a small screwdriver you need to connect it to here. So I'm gonna start with the brown one. Here. Okay, screw it in, give it a tug, make sure it's connected. We do the same thing for the red one here. Put it in. Screw it in. Make sure it's good. We can give it a little tug. Yes, it's good. We can take our track. So I got here a piece of track that's connected to my mobile station 2. I'll connect a extra piece of track so I have something to connect it to. And then the brown wire and red wire goes on the track as usual. So the red wire here goes on the B, or the one shortest to the edge, and the brown goes on the 0. So we attach this. Do remember, no power while you're doing this. Brown to 0. Okay, so now we basically got the M83 connected to the track here. Excellent. I'll illustrate how to connect the two turnout mechanisms. I got here the Märklin 74490. If you have the 74491 mounted exactly the same way as this one here. I also got a 74492, which is the newest one. I'll also show how to connect this one. Let's start with the 74490. Let's take it out. So remember, it has some connectors here. We don't need those. It has a wire. So if we just unfold the wire here, we see it essentially has a yellow and 2 blue, and we need to connect that to the M83. If we look at the M83, so this is for turnout 1, it has a red and a green. If we look at the connectors down here, so then basically the red here is the one furthest to the left, the green here is the one furthest to the right, and then the one in the middle is basically the neutral. So if we look at the wires here, which I got from the turnout mechanism here, the 74490, there's a yellow and 2 blue. So the trick here is that the yellow one goes in the center, and then the blue that's closest to the yellow is actually the red, and the blue furthest away from the yellow is the green. However, don't despair. If you put them in wrong, you can just switch around the wires afterwards. So let's connect these up. Again, just use the screwdriver and then plug them in. So basically just plug it in and screw it in place. Oh, I have to remember that the yellow goes in the center. All right, so it goes in here. You have the two blues. Now I need to find the one that's furthest away, because that was the green. So that's this one here. We have the end here. All right. Go back to our M83. We got green here to the right, so it needs to sit to the right. Remember to twist the wires as well on these ones. Okay, and then we need to find the last blue one, which is the one that's closest to the yellow. So that's the red. So we plug that in where we have the red. We plug it in to the left here of the connector. All right. Okay, so now we got yellow in the center and the two blues to the side here for red and green. If you mix them up and when you try it on your mobile station or central station later and it doesn't fit with what they think is red and green, then just shift the wires around. So that was for the 74490. So we got that one connected, and of course you need to plug this into a turnout as well, but here for illustration purpose I'll just let it sit on the table. We will carry on to the 74492. This one looks different. It basically has a completely different colored wire. So if you look at this one, the wire itself is actually black, red and yellow. However, same principle. So the black here will go in the center, the red on the red, and the yellow will actually go on the green. Okay. So this wire here, we need to untwist it to get it out. All right. But you see this one here has a connector at the end, which we don't need. This is actually if you're using the Märklin starter and if you're using the push buttons, but we don't need those. So we can cut it off. All right. And then we got the 3 wires here, which we can separate. And then we can remove the insulation. And then we can basically just take these 3 wires here. So let's remove the insulation. All right, that was the first one. All right. And the last one. Cool. Again, twist the wires. Okay. So the black goes in the center. I'm going to put that one in as number 2. Where did my screwdriver go? It's here. The red is the red, okay. So it goes to the left here. And the yellow is the green. Cool. Now, the only thing now we need to do is to set the address. And if we zoom in here on the dip switch, we have a dip switch as we know it from all the other decoders. So let's go and find the manual. We have the manual here. And let me find some English. German here. We have the dip switch here. It has addressing from 1 through 9, and then the last one is Märklin or DCC. We see if it's off, it's Märklin. If it's on, it's DCC. So we want that one to off. Here comes the interesting part, the addressing. If you noticed, it's a series of addresses here. Okay, why is that? Well, it's because if you look at the M83, there's actually 4 outputs here. Each output needs its own address, right? So you basically just set the first address, and then the 3 next one gets the sequential addresses or the following addresses. So if you look at it here, the dip switches have addresses, I can set it to 1 through 4, then I only need the 1 on. If I needed 5 to 8, then I only need the 2 on here, and so on, right? So that also means I cannot set the address of the M83 decoder to address 3, for example. I have to do either address 1 through 4 or 5 through 6. Now this is also important when you are designing your layout and deciding what your address scheme should be, right? Because now you need to make sure that you can reserve 4 addresses, and it can be 4 addresses that actually can be programmed into the M83. And so we go ahead and we look at the M83 here, and we can see that they are all at the bottom, which is actually the preferred position if you are going to use the Central Station 3, because that's a blank address. It's basically if number 10 is off here, that's Märklin and not DCC mode, so it's in Märklin mode, and all the addresses are basically blank. So when you have it like this, then it's ready to mount on the Central Station 3, and then I will use MFX to decide what the address is. Now I'm first going to show how this one works on Mobile Station 2. So in order to do that, I'm going to set it to address 1. And in order to set it to address 1, we basically just needed the number 1 to be on. So we see number 1 is on and all the others are off, including the Märklin one at the end. All right, let's review what we've done. So now on the M83, we've connected the connector here furthest to the right, which has the red-brown. We connected that to the track. We used a red and a brown wire. We connected that up to the track, so the red on the B and the brown on the 0. And then we have connected 2 turnout decoders. I have here the 74490, but it could also be the 91. It has 3 wires coming out of it. It has the yellow, the blue, and the blue. The yellow basically goes in the center on the M83, and the blue, the one closest to the yellow, goes to the leftmost part of the connector, which is red, and the blue, which is furthest away from the yellow, goes to the green. All right. We also have the turnout mechanism here, the 74492. When you have that one, it has a completely different wire. So if you're using the 74491, by the way, it needs to be as the one I just showed you before. The 74992 here, which is the newest one, has a black, red, and yellow wire. But if you notice, they're in the same position as the wires before, so there's really no difference. So the black goes in the center here. For the second connector, so I got the first one turnout mechanism in the first connector, and the second one here, it goes black in the center, red to the left, and yellow to the right. So red is basically where you see the red dot here, and yellow is basically the green. All right, this means now that we are ready to actually connect it up to the or put power on the track and first try out with the mobile station. Well, the last thing of the review, remember we actually set the dip switch, so it's on Märklin and it's on address 1 through 4. All right, I will turn on the mobile station. The mobile station is turning on. All right, I'll take it out of stop mode, and when we do that, we'll actually see it gets power. So I'll press the stop button here off camera and zoom in. So you see now I got out of stop mode. You see the M83 is actually happy and it's already starting to blink, which actually means that we did everything correctly and it's ready to operate. All right. So now we go to the turnout. So we hit the turnout button. We are on keyboard here, and you see it shows addresses 1 and 2. Don't forget you can go left and right by the buttons up here. You can also use shift and then scroll faster, shift and then the knob and scroll faster. But we actually set it for address 1, 2, 3, 4. And since we put our turnout in number 1 and 2 here, that means that the first connector here in the M83 is address 1 and the next one is address 2. If I had set the address for the M83 to 5, then the first one here would be 5 and the second one would be 2. All right, so we have 1 and 2 here. We trace the wires. Number 1 should be this turnout mechanism. So let me put it here. And I'll go and take number 1. This is red and green. I will press on green first. Oh, and you saw something happen. I'll press on red. You see, red, green. So it actually works here. All right. I'll go over on number 2. I'll press red and green, which then should be the other one. And you can see, indeed, it works. So we succeeded. Excellent. All right, now let's connect the M83 to the central station tree. So basically there's no difference. You connect it the same way to the track. So basically you have the power from the M83 going to the track exactly the same way. You got all your turnout decoders. Yeah, now it turned out to be a wire mess, but you got them connected in exactly the same way, so there's no difference there. I have the central station tree connected here as well to the track, and remember to do all of this with the power off. Now the last thing I want to do is, well, I could set let me just zoom in. I could set the dip switch here to address 1. But actually, since it is MFX, then the central station tree can recognize the M83 decoder and actually automatically assign an address. In order to do that, we want to give it a blank address. We do that by the last one here, number 10. We make sure that that one is set for Märklin mode, which is off, which is now. And then all the other dip switches needs to be on off. And now you see number 1 is on 1. So we want to put that one on off. Okay, so now we basically have a blank address, which actually means that now the central station tree can go in and assign it an address. In this video, I'm illustrating how to connecting the M83, the newest generation, so the 60832, to the central station tree. In this case, I can just give it a blank address and the central station tree will automatically recognize it through MFX. If you're installing the older one, the 60831, so if you're installing that M83 decoder, it does not support MFX, so you basically just need to set the address before you connect it to the central station tree. So here's the central station tree. So the first thing I'm going to do is take it out of stop mode. Then we need to go and discover the MFX items, and we do that by pulling down the green tab at the top. We go to edit, and then we go to discover MFX items. Do remember that we had set the address or the dip switch to blank, so basically everything on off and on Märklin. So that means we can safely allow the central station tree to get a new address. If I wanted to, I could also have put in an address on the dip switch and then choose the keep its address here. But now it's blank, so I'm gonna say, well, whenever you find MFX device, get a new address. Okay, so we hit OK and we wait. It's going to look for MFX devices. It found a new MFX device on the track. We have to wait patiently. It's reading it. You saw briefly there that it's an M83. It's looking for more MFX devices. All right, we are almost there. Yep, it found one device. Excellent, as we expected. Now we can pull down further here in the green, and then we can see all the accessories. And what you don't know is that all of these here, these 5 turnouts here to the left, they were there before, but actually now 4 new turnouts popped up, and you see those here as A1, 2, 3, and 4. So we can go and try it and observe the turnouts and see if they work. So let's click this one first. And you see it actually does shift, and it actually indeed is the port 1 on the M83 decoder. I can go click on the next one. Yes, we also have that one working. So basically we succeeded in connecting the M83 to the central station tree, and now we have it working inside the central station. It was very, very easy because we put in a blank address. We just said discover MFX items and everything works. Yippee! Now let's look at how we add the M83, the older one, the white edition, the 60831 to the central station tree. Well, first of all, let's go look at the manual because you need to remember to set the address. So let me just find the English here. I've set the address for the M83 to 21 to 24. So dip switch 2 and 3. So I know these are the 4 addresses. Then I have to go to my central station. So we have the central station tree here. And in order to add the M83, well, basically what you have to do is to add 4 separate turnouts. There is really no M83 to add. When you do it using the MFX, there's actually a specific M83 that pops up that can be programmed. But for the 60831, which is the white edition, you basically just have to add the turnouts manually. How do we do that? Well, you go up here to the green in the top of the screen. You can click this one, or you can drag it, and then it will open. And here you see all your accessories. We can go to edit. I can go to add article list. I might want to add turnouts here. All right. Then actually you see the entire article or accessories list actually pops up. It has already added one here, which is W1. You can see it's highlighted. So that was address 21 I wanted. So we can go down here where it says address. We can click on this. We can put in the address. It was 21. I can click that, and now you see 21. It shows black down here, which actually means it's a free address, so the central station tree is not using it, so we succeeded in finding a good address. See, if I decrease the addresses here, you'll see suddenly here number 16 actually turns red, and that's because there's already another device that's using this address, so we cannot use that one. So, but this was 21. So I go into 21, we have the address here. You can give it a name. W comes from turnout. So what I usually do is I give it a name I can remember. So I usually give it T for turnout, and then I give it the number of the address. So in this case, T21. And now you see it's called T21. Then you need to make sure that whatever turnout you mount the turnout mechanism in is exactly how it looks here on the screen. So you can choose down here between the right turnout, which it already was. You can choose as a left turnout. but you could also do the double switch as well. When you have done the turnout, you can hit OK, and we can go here. Now you see it's not available in the turnout list or the accessories list, so we can either change here, scroll left and right, or you can also just pull it down and you can find it. So where do we have our T21? I don't see T21 anywhere. Why don't I see T21? Oh, it's because I can't see it. It's right here. So when we click this, it will actually change now. We can go ahead and add the others. This time I will do it differently. So I click Edit. I click Edit Article List. You can go in here and hit plus. Now I got a WE1 again. I want to give the next one address 22. Okay. I'm going to give it name T22. 22. Okay. Let's say that this time it's a left. All right. And we can hit OK. And now we got T22 and T21 here. So actually when you use the 60831, you have to manually enter it, and it just looks like any other turnout out there on your layout. You can't distinguish whether or not it's an M83 or a built-in decoder. Let's look at the troubleshooting of the M83. So if this LED is happily blinking red, so you see it's behind the red wire here, the one right behind the red wire. If that's happily blinking red as it is now, that means that it's connected correctly to the power and it's actually ready to receive instructions. If you look, each connector here also has a LED. So number 1 here you see behind the red and behind the green, there's also an LED here. They will actually blink when they get activated. So the same thing for connector 2 here, behind the red and behind the green. So I got my mobile station here. Right now it's green that's activated, so I can activate number 2 or the red on number 2 here. So if I do that off camera, and if you watch the LEDs here, so I'm going to activate it now. So there you actually saw that the red one actually blinked. So if I press on the green, then the green blinks. So in this fashion, every time you do it, you can see something actually happens. So this is helpful because now you can see that the M83 is connected and happy, and you can see actually which of the connectors that actually work. So in case you mixed up the addresses. So the final things the LEDs can show you is if you put the wires on wrong. So if you notice here on the track, I put the power for the M83 on wrong. So I put brown on the B, which is wrong. Brown should be on the 0. I have red on the 0, which is wrong. It should be on the B. And if we go back here and we see I still got the red and the brown wires in here, you see there's no LED now. That's because on my mobile station I actually have it in stop mode. So now let's try and take it out of stop mode and see what happens. So I'm going to take it out of stop mode now. And then you see it's very unhappy, rapid blinking of the LEDs. So if there's rapid blinking of the LEDs here, that actually means that you put on the power wrong. You also heard it said some kind of sound. So take it out of stop mode or put it in stop mode again. And then reverse the wires. So we'll do that. Okay. I'll put the brown on the 0, which it's supposed to. And I'll put the red on the B. All right. We can take it out of stop mode again. We look at it and it starts blinking happily. So now it's happy again. As the final thing, we saw before that when I pressed rest in green over here at the connector, those LEDs changed. But actually the LED here next to the power will change as well. So every time you access the M83 on any of the connectors, you will also see that the LED next to the happily blinking LED will activate. So I'm going to change now. So you see it changes both at the connector, but also here at the power. So in that way you can see if you have the right address. The cool thing about the M83s is you can string them together. So if we examine M83 up close, here at the ends we got some connectors here, one on each side. So this is a female connector here and a male connector over here. So if we got two M83s, we can basically just plug them together like this. And the benefit of that is that only one of them needs to have a power, while all the others are basically just connected to the power through that one. So in that way you can actually make a string of M83s, and you can actually, as I understand it, mix both M83s, M84s, both the newer and the older version. So remember, the one I'm showing you here is the 60832. However, you might as well have installed the 60831 as well. The only thing you have to be aware of is only one is allowed to have power, and they say the first. In the manual, I'm not quite sure what the first is, so I usually just power one of the ends. So if I have a string here going from here the rightmost to the leftmost, and if I have even more out here, I would power the rightmost. And you're not allowed to put any type of wire in between them as well. So here you have an example of where I've connected it up, and I've connected to multiple turnout mechanisms as well. So if I take this one out of stop mode, you see they're both happily blinking. You see I only have power to this one here. I do not have power to this one. So remember, only one of them are allowed to be powered, and you're not allowed to have wire in between. You basically just plug them together. And that means now I can basically just go and I can use all of them. So those were on the one that I just installed. Okay. And then you can see this one over here is connected to three other ones. So, and here I actually mounted the turnout mechanisms inside the turnouts as well. So you can see it. And you see everything works. On the Central Station 3, when you automatically discover them, then actually what happens is that they will get letters. So you see here on the Central Station 3, the first M83 is A1 through A4, while the second one is B1 through B4. All right, we got the M83 connected to turnout mechanisms, and we showed it for two different turnout mechanisms. The M83 is actually very versatile, and it can be used for many other things as well. So the M83 can also be connected to a three-way turnout. It can also do lighting. It can do special effects and so on. In addition to that, you can actually power or have an additional power supply connected to the M83 as well. All of this I intend to cover in other videos. This is just to get you started on the M83. By the way, this is the M83, which out of the box comes by default to be used with turnouts. There's also M84 as well. The M84, when you by default unpack that one and it comes out of the box, it's actually set up for lighting. So what is the big difference between the 83 and the 84? Well, they can do a lot of the similar things, but going back to basics, the biggest difference is the M83 takes the power from the tracks, and that's actually the power it uses, where the the M84 actually can power from a completely different power source, and the connectors here can work on a completely different power source, where the ones in the M83 actually uses the track power. Now, when would I use the M83 instead of the built-in decoders in the turnouts? Well, to me it's an easy choice. I like making table layouts, and I might like changing my layout all the time. Since I keep redoing my layout, I prefer actually to have the decoders inside the turnouts, because then they follow along. If you see at the M83, you'll end up with a lot of wires, and don't forget this one needs to be connected to the track as well, so you'll end up with a lot of wires. So this one it's very, very good to use when you have a more permanent layout. The benefit of using this one is one of the M83s is actually much cheaper than 4 of the built-in decoders you put in the turnout. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please hit the like button underneath the video, and don't forget to subscribe for the channel as well, and also click the little bell so that whenever future videos come, you'll be notified. Enjoy!